दोनों ओर के सैनिक पांसे की नोकों पर नर्तन करते अपने विरोधी को हराने के लिए आगे बढ़ते जा रहे हैं। प्रत्येक दिव्यास्त्र को उचित दिव्यास्त्र से रोका जा सकता है, लेकिन उनका चयन योद्धाओं की बुद्धि पर निर्भर है। कुरुक्षेत्र के इस युद्ध में क्या आप जीवित बच सकते हैं, इसका निर्णय भाग्य और योद्धाओं के कौशल के हवाले है। जानिए, आपको मिलती है वीरगति या बनते हैं सम्राट युधिष्ठिर के राज्य का हिस्सा। खेलिए महाभारत युद्ध पर आधारित यह रोचक खेल, रणभूमि कुरुक्षेत्र।
A very warm welcome to everybody to yet another episode of Kahi Suni. Today we have with us Dr. Deepa Durai Swamiji. She holds various degrees in engineering and management from the universities of Pune and IIM Calcutta. Her desire to understand the Agamas and make them more accessible for a modern audience led to an interdisciplinary PhD on temple management in the Agamas at the Department of Sanskrit, University of Madras, that is now published as a book by Indic Academy. She has taught the same as an online course on the Indica Courses platform. She hopes to continue exploring this ancient system that seems to be at the core of the Sanatan Dharma practice. We welcome you, Deepaji, to another episode of Kahi Suni. We are very happy to have you here with us. First of all, I would like to ask you, would you like to tell us a bit about yourself, who Deepa Durai Swami is, and what does a day in your life basically looks like?
Okay, that's the big question. But first of all, thank you so much for having me, and big namaste to all your viewers. And so who is Deepa? What does my day look like? Just when you were playing this intro, I was like, don't to my daughter to not get into the camera and shake the laptop. So I guess that is me first, a mother. And otherwise pretty ordinary person. So many years ago, when there used to be all these websites, shadi.com and matrimony.com and all that, and I had to my mom forced me to write a profile, and I was like rebelling, and I said, okay, what do I write? So I think I sort of paraphrased Anne Frank, and I said a little bundle of contradictions. That's when you're young and you think you're the only unique person in the world, and then you realize,
Right.
hello, there are 7 billion other people, right? So
Yeah.
a whole bunch of interests, and but one life. So
Interestingly, your degrees contain of engineering and management, and now you told me that you're doing a full-time job as a marketer. Where does writing, fit in all this, and how did writing, apart from the matrimony.com thing, come into your life, basically?
yeah, I know. That involves a lot of creativity. But apart from that, I think I began as a reader, so the degrees are all external. But internally, I think I was always interested in words. I was always interested in stories. So I used to read a lot as far back as I can remember. I grew up with my grandparents for a while, and they used to have all these Tamil magazines, the weeklies, the daily paper. But I wasn't so much interested in the news as I was in all these, slice of life stories, way beyond my age. But anyway, so I sort of read as much as I could of that. I remember reading Skanda Puran in Tamil when I was a class 4 or something. So basically, just for the
Wow.
story. And my dad actually used to tell us a lot of stories, like if you can imagine, uh, like like a small terrace portion, single bedroom where we all lived, and then summer nights used to be so hot because it had a tin roof. So we all used to
Right.
like go out and pour buckets of water on the terrace to cool it down, and then put mats and like sleep facing the sky. And that was one of the most cherished experiences of my life, because my dad used to, lie down in between and to tell us stories about, okay, all the clouds passing by, and we used to make shapes out of the clouds, and he used to spin all these yarns of, what is going on with all these different creatures that he has just made. And so I think stories are fascinating. Fantasy is the best gift that we can give a child. And so I guess by that yardstick, I had a very rich childhood. So when you read and when you love stories, you automatically want to start writing. So I guess that's how writing began for me. It's just something that was natural.
When you said this, it actually reminded me of how my Nana ji, when I went to my Nani's place in summer vacations, and he used to do the same for me. For me, storyteller was my Nanu. He used to narrate several beautiful stories and he used to create stories out of thin air like a magician. So,
Yeah, that's what it feels like, like it's magic. Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
And
So,
that
it's
sense of
like,
wonder.
yes, absolutely. So, since we have already come to the writing part, how was your journey of, writing this story? Okay, I should tell the audience first about what story we are going to talk about today. In this session, we are going to talk about Deepaji's story Minakshi, the Queen of Madurai. This story is published in the anthology named The Flight of Deities, which is inspired from the same title, a book of the same title written by Minakshi Jainji. And today we are going to talk about this story, Minakshi, the Queen of Madurai. So, basically, what was your journey of writing this story, this creating this story out of thin air like a magician? This story from the first draft to the final result. How did it happen?
Okay, so first of all, I am a writer in my imagination. So one of those
Mm-hmm.
writers who wish they could be writers, but don't put in the effort that is required. So most of my stories are in my head. But because, this was Indica's call, and this, I loved Dr. Meenakshi Jain's book, and I thought, this deserves to be told, because stories are the best way to reach, a
Absolutely,
modern or any audience, actually, the best way
absolutely.
to, convey even history, right? So for me, the first thing was like, which temple am I going to pick? So, and there were
Right.
so many contenders, especially Multan really spoke to me because, of the Saura worship. And Saura worship was a very, very strong part of our culture. Unfortunately, those sun temples are not in use, or in active use anymore, but Saura worship has been subsumed into Shaiva theology. And Shiva Surya, or Surya, is a very important part of both Shaiva, Shakta, as well as the Vaishnava systems, because that again goes back to a time when Saura worship itself was a very special, separate kind of worship. So Multan was a strong contender, but finally I picked Madurai and Meenakshi, very close to my heart. And after that, of course, it was a question of the characters. I knew the story broadly from my childhood, but uh, uh, there was a question of picking the characters. And once the characters came, I think they knew what to do. And that's what they say, right? They have a life of their own. But once you write, you really feel like, okay, this is how they are, and this is how they behave.
Right,
And one thing I had to do was get some history right. So many of the
right.
things in the story are basically they follow historical things. So the war, I had a great woman author to refer to, Queen Ganga Devi, wife of Kumara Kampana. She accompanies
Right.
Kumara Kampana to everywhere that he goes, to the war front, and she records what happens. So thanks to her, we have a great account of the war in
Wow.
Madurai. So her book is called Madura Vijayam, and it
Okay.
gives us a beautiful background. And so it's basically from a lot of material is from there, the actual war and how it happened, and things like that. And before that, one of the instances also is from historical sources. So I've tried to blend something that, so I had the next step was, of course, the research and blending it together into the story. So yeah, so then it was like
Okay,
this.
so yeah, so you said that the Multan was a strong competitor, right? So, but what made you finally choose the Meenakshi Amman temple? Do you have any personal experience or
Yeah.
something which made you go with this temple specifically?
Absolutely. I mean, there was no competition. Actually, Multan was more, like, of course, the whole thing of the disc of Surya suspended between magnets and all that. So that I thought that was beautiful, and I thought it would be a great story to tell. But actually, honestly, there was no competition because Madurai is very, very close to my heart. Meenakshi is very close to my heart. Madurai is a mix of Shaiva, Shakta, Vaishnava, all the systems coming together, and she's a very, very powerful Shakti, and she is considered to be the portal of all Shaktis. My Acharya, Shanmuka Shivacharya ji, used to always say that she is a portal of all the energies coming together. And Madurai itself is an ancient city. Tamil Sangam literature was sort of
Yes.
developed there. It flourished there. Three sangams were built there, and so yes, and very personally as well, my grandmoms, both my grandmoms were named Meenakshi, and
Oh wow.
yeah, very, very personal connect. So there is no Madurai city, actually, if you see, it's beautifully structured. The city itself is structured around the temple. The streets are concentric circles around the temple, and then you have these radial streets from the temple. So everything revolves around Meenakshi, and she was a queen, and she was like the goddess came down and ruled Madurai as the queen of Madurai, and then she marries Shiva as her consort. So, do you have a minute? Can I tell you that story?
Absolutely, absolutely. Would love to hear that story.
Okay. Okay, so the king and queen of Madurai were childless for a long time, and they were Shiva
Right.
Bhaktas. So they pray for a daughter. So they pray for actually, sorry, they pray for the line to continue and all that. And finally, they're blessed with a baby girl, I think, who appears from the Havan or something. But she has, three sthanas. She's three breasted. And they're very worried, like a girl child. It seems like she's deformed or whatever. But there is an Ashariri, a voice from the heavens, which says that, like, bring her up as your, uh, you know, uh, the future ruler of the country. And when she meets her match, the third breast will disappear. So Meenakshi, grows up as a warrior princess, and she conquers all the lands around, and she goes up to the Ganga, and she goes up to the Himalayas, and finally, she calls down, the person on Mount Kailasha, and says, "Okay, I want to conquer this area." And Lord Shiva appears, and when she sees him, the third breast disappears, and then she realizes. Till then, she's like this very masculine, I'm going to go conquer, and then she realizes, sort of, okay, I have met my match, and then Lord Shiva says, "Go back, and I will come to your parents to ask for your hand in marriage." So he arrives, and there's a beautiful story around it. Even today, South Indian weddings sort of follow this whole Meenakshi Kalyanam, process of the bride and the groom on the unjal, the swing, and so many other, practices. It's really beautiful. It's literally like you see the god and goddess being married, and even today, when the Kalyana Utsavam happens, people bring all the, like they. जो लाइक इसमें देते हैं ना, लाइक वेडिंग्स में दे ब्रिंग प्लेट्स ऑफ फ्रूट एंड वी
हाँ
कॉल इट
हाँ
सीर, आई डोंट नो
हाँ
व्हाट इज व्हाट इज द इंग्लिश और द हिंदी इक्विवेलेंट. तो बारात में
हाँ
थाली लेके आते हैं होल with all
हाँ
kind,
हाँ
everybody
हाँ
brings different
हाँ
things.
हाँ
So
हाँ.
people bring all that as if it's like their own ghar ka shadi, and they bring all that to
Wow.
the temple and all. Every year, every temple has the wedding festival, and Lord Shiva rules in Madurai. He's a consort, and he also co-rules as Meenakshi's consort. He's called Sundareshwara the Beautiful,
Yes.
and he
Yes.
performs so many tiny miracles, and it's called Thiruvilayadal, the divine play. So I mean, yeah, Madurai, no
Wow.
contender. There's so much in that city.
Okay, so I really like this idea. I think like you told me, ki, uh, the city of Madurai, the temple is in the center, and then the city is in concentric circles. So basically, this idea, ancient idea of dharma in the center, and the life revolving around it, and going through different stages. it's a beautiful portrayal of that. I don't know if I'm correct, but I feel this might portray it, a little bit of that. Other than that, the princess warrior, you said, I am always awestruck at the female warriors, the strong characters and the personalities, not only the warriors but all the female characters in our ancient times. They carry so much of wisdom, they carry so much of valor within them. So it's just, it's beyond words to express, basically. uh,
Absolutely.
Coming to the story, would you like to tell us a little bit about the story before we get into the questions about the story, basically?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how much and how to say it without sort of. Of course, it's history, so there's really not spoiling the surprise. So I don't think there's going to be like a spoiler alert or anything. Everybody knows that. Well, the temple was destroyed and the temple was built again.
Yes.
But this story takes place in the years when the Madurai Sultanate was in rule. So, in the time when the temple was destroyed, and it revolves around the family of this old priest who used to be the chief priest of the temple, which is now destroyed. And it is about, it is actually, in a sense, it is about a wait. It is about when you can't do anything, what do? You wait. And waiting as an active um, act. So yeah, I think the story is about that, and it's about break of tradition. It is about the continuity of tradition, and it is also about the role of kings. Who really were the kings and the queens or the rulers? What did they, how, what did they consider to be their duty? And also, the kind of the challenges that we have seen in the past, and how we should learn from that, and to sort of be aware of what's happening around us today. So it's I think it's all that, but I hope it's more interesting than what I just said. It's not like a laundry list, but yeah, I really love those characters. I think each of them are real, and I felt that they were real, and they very closely mirror the times and the events of their times. And so yeah, I think they are somewhere there in a plane. So reading the story is like accessing the lives of that era.
Yeah, that's beautiful. As you said, the story is about waiting, and I really found it a very unique and quite realistic feature of your story, that when these temples were destroyed, when these invasions took place, there, it actually, meant a lot of waiting on the part of the devotees, because the temples couldn't be reconstructed again right away, because the invasions were taking place, and the rulers were changing, and a lot of things were going around. It was chaos, literally chaos. So this wait, basically, people can say that this is a passive dharma, in a way, passive dharma, I would say, but it is active in its own way. And why do you think, how does it helps to actually this weight to bring this dharma to us? How is it brought dharma to us, through those times where, through those ruins, basically through the ruins of those temples, and in after all those invasions, how has it reached us? That is my question.
That's a great question. That's a great question, because at the end of the day, even like when you read Dr. Meenakshi Jain's book, it's overwhelming, the amount of destruction and the frequency of
Absolutely.
it, because this culture kept getting, the onslaught was relentless. Things kept getting pulled down. As you put it back up, they'll get pulled down, and so many different places. And yet here we are, right? So what was
Yet.
it? So yeah, yet. So I think it is faith, and it is easy
Absolutely.
to say faith,
Mm-hmm.
but what is behind that faith is that inherent sense of unquestionable kind of certainty that this will change, that the deity will be back, the temple will be back. and also the reality of the deities, that even if the temple is not there, the deity still exists. They believed in that reality, and it was so much a part of who they were that even if they could not do anything, they knew there will be a time when things will change, and so they waited, and their waiting itself was, like you said, it seems like passively following thing, but the magic word you used was dharma. So I think that is the magic that transforms what is passive into what is active.
Right.
So being following their dharma, the swadharma, everybody, while waiting, transforms that act of waiting into an active tapas. I would say it was tapas. And because of our tapas, because of their tapas, is why these temples came up again and again. Why the gods decided to, because ultimately, if you believe, it is divine will, and it was it, and the tapas makes that will, it brings that will into reality. So I would say it is one of the most powerful things they have done, which is following their swadharma without losing you can say hope or faith or whatever, but that certainty that this is indestructible no matter what the external reality, this is eternal, and it will come out again. So
Yes, I mean, I actually have goosebumps right now because I can remember all the temples which were invaded as many as 17 times, 19 times, and today they're still thriving. And today they're so beautiful, and the devotees are going, and they are going to be there for another 1,000 years or so. Because I'm
forever.
sure, because there is faith, and this faith can move mountains, as they say, and I really do believe that. Uh, this faith actually, I'll stick to this word for a while. A very interesting character in your story, uh, Som Shambhu. He is the dharmacharya or the priest. So the practice of having dharmacharyas and priests was pretty common during those times. All the kings had, a Raj priest or a Raj Purohit, we call him. So it was very important, and through these priests, it was made sure that the traditions or dharma was made to carry forward in different forms and different ways. Would you like to tell something about your character and how these dharmacharyas basically became significant in carrying dharma forward?
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's a very, very, it's an important question. Sorry. So, the acharyas are a very important part of Sanatan Dharma, and we have had several streams. Every parampara, every traditional parampara has had the guru at the top. Um the ritual traditions, the the astika, the traditions that we follow, like the Shaiva, Shakta, Vaishnava traditions, have always had acharyas at the center of the practice, which involves temple worship as well as worship at home. So the acharyas were very important, not just in performing worship at the temple, but also in helping the people get into the practice, give them diksha, initiate them into, today we say that well, I believe, I believe in some energy, but that's it. Or we say that, well, yeah, I have like a personal connection, which is all fine, and who better than this land to sort of accept every stream of thought, every way of being, every way of connecting. But this was a faster way. The acharyas helped you reach there faster. They put you in an aeroplane. Why would you choose to then tread? I mean, that is one path as well. There is a left hand path and the right hand path and all kinds of different paths, right? So the acharyas were very important to, because it's a jungle, the path is very difficult, and they said, look, there is this multi-lane highway, or depending on your evolution, depending on what you can take, you can just zoom there. And they put you on that path, and so therefore they were very important. that journey was actually a science,
Mm-hmm.
and they were the conduits, and they passed that on actually to their own disciples as well as to the general public. So they are very important nodes. And the Shiva Parampara, the Shaiva Agamas believe that at the time of Diksha, Shiva himself comes through the Acharya to give Diksha, because we believe nobody else can give you grace. In you, the
Right.
Acharya becomes Shiva in order to worship Shiva. So the
Mm-hmm.
role of the Acharya is something that is very, very core to our dharma. And they are actually the, it's like if you hack them, you hack the entire system. So, which is
Right.
why if you see, every time
Mm-hmm.
there has been an invasion, they target, the Acharya Parampara, the Guru Parampara of the various traditions. There is always, in the name of not understanding the Varnashrama Dharma, there is always, they are, if because you break that, one big, continuity is broken. And so yes, the acharyas are very important today. I would say it's very, very critical if we really want to protect our dharma.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fractal system. It's not something which is the our culture, our dharma is living, and it's viewed just like nature has fractal architecture. We Our Sanatan Dharma is, it's like fractal architecture. If you look at the Puranas, everything is linked to everything, because, and you catch one thing, you'll get to the core. You can get to anywhere from anywhere, because that's the way it's built. It's built like nature. It's nature itself, and which is why it is the truth, because you are reflecting what is eternal. And
Right.
therefore, sorry, I was about to make a point and I've forgotten. Uh,
It's
yes, so
okay.
therefore, when you break the acharyas, they sort of
Hmm.
encode this knowledge,
Yes.
and this knowledge is not written in stone, it's not in a book, it's not inanimate, it is living in the Acharya Parampara. So we don't recognize that enough. And it's like you take somebody, you push them into the dirt, and then you point fingers at them saying, oh, your clothes are dirty. That's what we are doing to our Acharya Parampara. So, I mean, I will stop there, but except to reiterate the point that, what is valuable is, encoded in our acharyas, and we really need to preserve that.
You've actually made a mention of such an attack, which is inspired from a real life incident mentioned in Ibn Battuta's writings, Ghiyasuddin's attack. Would you like to, tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so as part of the story, actually, I had to give a background to the boy who grows up without parents. So then I read that Ibn Battuta was the traveler, and he was visiting Madurai at the time of around the time the story is set. One of the various sultans of Madurai, self-proclaimed. So Malik Kafur and his people had invaded, and they had appointed a
Mm-hmm.
sultan. But by the time they went back, these people had started declaring themselves as dissociated from the Delhi Sultanate, and they said, okay, we
Mm-hmm.
are independent. So then this was called
Okay.
the Madurai Sultanate, and there were various other rulers, one after the other. So this one particular sultan at the time was Ghiyasuddin, and he was especially cruel. And when he was ruling, Ibn Battuta had visited, and he was there. So he narrates that they were sitting, and the and a Brahmin and his wife and a child is brought in front of them for no other reason that they were passing by, and they hated Brahmins with a, I don't know, with a vehemence. Anybody with a this thing, the sacred thread and a tuft. And they were brought, and Ghiyasuddin, there is no inquiry, there is nothing, just for the fact that they were passing by, he orders them to be beheaded. So the Qazi is, sick to the stomach and extremely uncomfortable. And Ibn Battuta says that he had excused himself, and he leaves, and the Sultan understands that he couldn't stomach this violence. So this is something that is recorded, and apparently every day, and especially if you were a Brahmin, you were just beheaded. And there is so much like this, but we don't know, right? So these are all recorded in some obsolete, some obscure text that we don't have access to, or we are too busy in our own lives to sort of read. So, and but then when you really read it and you think about it, and when the reality of, like a bunch of, like, people for no reason, this is the kind of mass killing that goes unrecorded,
Mhm.
unrecognized. There's so much of such mass killing that happened. So yes, so this
This
definitely, I think.
actually, mm, yeah, I'm sorry, please continue.
No, 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 I'm just saying this is definitely, like, they knew that destroy the culture, you destroy the Brahmins first. Uh, yeah.
So basically, they just, this makes sense. They are destroying the foundation of a culture so that the people, they cannot carry it forward the traditions, because once the foundation is destroyed, there is nothing left. Even the importance of these gurus and acharyas, we see in Mahabharat. It's a very lesser known character called Dhaumya. He is the advisor, or the Purohit, in a way, the Dharma advisor of the Pandavas. He is there throughout their journey, and he's the one telling them what to do, how to behave, and how to follow the Dharma, basically, how to walk on the path of Dharma. But today, when I see, even I did not know his name a while ago. Why to be, like, why to pretend? Even I did not know, which is so sad, and it makes us understand that how important it is to go back to our ancient texts and our ancient beliefs, basically. Um,
Absolutely.
Another thing, another point which I would like to come to now, since you already showed us that your story is quite a balanced and perfect blend of history and fiction. So, how do you think? What advice would you give to the upcoming writers who want to make this perfect blend? Like, you could give examples as from other stories or your story as well.
Oh, thank you. I am a wannabe writer, so the fact that you're asking me this question makes me feel so happy. I can't tell you. I'm in no position to give advice. I'm telling myself that I should actually, put my sort of pen on paper and write. I think the key to writing is to just, writing and. Historical fiction, I would say my all-time favorite, is Kalki. Uh, Ponniyin Selvan just got made, I guess, adapted also into other languages. So, but I'm not, I'm a diehard fan of Ponniyin Selvan, the novel. So, yeah, reading is better. First read the novel, even
Always.
in the English translation, and it's beautiful. You're just transported, to that. Those times and those people, and the way he describes Kaveri, and the festivals that happen on the riverside, etc. And of course, a lot of inscriptions. I guess he has taken, many facts from. So I think historical fiction, as far as I can, give gyan with the limited sort of experience that I have, I would say inscriptions are a great source of information, and lot of these travelogues are a great source. So I think we should get this thing down, the clothes and the lifestyle and what happened. A lot of incidents you can get from there, and if you're writing about temples, then inscriptions are a great source, and a lot of historical uh, you know uh, anecdotes, and a lot of, depending on the area that you choose, and the era and the people and the culture, the region, and yeah, a lot of material. I guess I would say go to the background material, get the history bit of the historical fiction down first. I think that's the hard work. But I think the magic is in adding, soul to it, flesh and blood to it. And otherwise, it's just like a history book. So the magic is in building characters who are real. And I'm talking about, I mean, not what I wrote, but I'm talking about characters that I like, what, as a reader. What I love
Mm-hmm.
is characters that are real, being transported to that era, something it is which is not, it doesn't pretend to be, but is, it flows easily,
Mm-hmm.
which and Kalki is amazing. Recently, there's a book that I really enjoyed. It's called The Song of Kaveri by Kalyan Raman
Mm-hmm.
Durgadas. That was
Mm-hmm.
also beautiful. It was set in independence, I think pre-independence era in the
Mm-hmm.
Kaveri belt. That also sort of, transported me there. And I think it's the authenticity of the time and place that you're writing. You have to immerse yourself in it. Either you are from there and you have life experiences that give you that authenticity, or you go seek out those experiences which sort of give you that experience, so you have credibility, not to prove a point to anybody else, but just which reflects in the writing that it
Right.
has that. And I'm going to give you a weird example. I don't know if you follow K dramas, but I recently got started, and some of them, it made me care so much about the Joseon era and the Goryeo period, and
Mm-hmm.
these are all
Mm-hmm.
different eras in Korean history. Okay,
Yes,
and
yes,
they have done such a great job of writing about these things.
yes.
So I think good writing can actually make people care. I think that's the power of stories, and yeah, and our history is a treasure trove. So I think there is so much scope, because I don't think we have too much in English today. I'm
Yeah,
sure,
that's true.
the languages, I'm sure there's a whole bunch of stuff we've not explored at all, but yeah.
Okay, so from what you said, I think a lot of thorough research goes into a process of authentic expression, basically. And what I feel is that today's generation hesitates or, from reading basically these ancient texts. So, how do you suggest should people like us, my age, 20s in their 30s, or anybody new who's new to such reading ancient texts, how should they be initiated into this reading process so that they can actually uh, get into it and it becomes a transformation for them basically?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the most relevant for today's, today's modern audience, modern, youth, for lack of a better word. It's super critical that we do this. We need to crack this problem, because if we do it, then I think the force of collective imagination is unstoppable. You just have to give them the rasa, you give them a taste of what it is, and then the material is going to do the magic. We don't have to do anything. You don't have to sell it. Oh God. This reminds me of a time, I was back in B school, and everybody was busy prepping for an interview, and everybody's giving like these cool stories of, oh, my seniors had this interview, this, etc., etc. Right? So this is what I heard. One of my seniors told me, this is somebody's telling somebody else's interview story. Okay, apparently this was a marketing interview or a strategy interview. I don't know. So one of those guys. So this interview is there, and so you prepare like tons and tons of questions, right, about who you are, your background, and falana falana, I like this, I like that, I was born to be the CEO of a $1 billion company, please make me your management trainee, and all that. So all that, so this guy gets into the interview room, and this person is sitting across the table, and so he sits, they're looking at him. So this is like in intense stress environment, so he takes out a pen from his pocket, the interviewer, and he puts it on the table, and he says, okay, sell this pen to me. Okay. So this guy keeps looking at the pen, and then he looks up at this interviewer and says, this is a Mont Blanc, and this does not need selling. So I'm not going to sell it to you. That was a huge risk, and apparently he got the job.
Yes.
I have no clue whether this is true or not, but this is campus legend. Okay, so why did I tell you the story? Yes, because our sources, our material is like this, Mont Blanc. We don't need to sell it. It's
Yes.
there. It's a treasure trove. When Shuka says in the Bhagavatam, He says, Pibata Bhagavata Rasam.
Mm-hmm.
So the nectar of this Bhagavata, you have to like drink it, you have to experience it, and it's going to make you like, Ambal is called Madalasa. She is actually in in she's in an exalted status where in a state of it is a high which is where you are at that level, you've it is at a it's a transcendent state, which is actually they
Mm-hmm.
describe the deities, so you aspire to that state. So what what our treasure trove has to give us is something so exalted, which is something that we only aspire to, but we don't know. If we are
Yes.
able to communicate to this generation that what you seek
Mm-hmm.
is there and beyond what you seek, because we are a generation of seekers. It's not that I would not say that uh, every I mean, we are human beings, right? We evolve, and every generation has evolved to be better, and they're seekers. They I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't put them down, but I would say that they just need to be shown that this is in the map. You just have to put the cross there and say, okay, this is where this X is what you're looking for, because they are
Mm-hmm.
running helter skelter. They don't have a map. I think we need to make, like, we need to say, okay, this is the map and this is the X where you need to go, and they will find a way to access. They will figure out, I need to learn Sanskrit, I need to go, this is a easy way to learn, I need to code in this, and so much interdisciplinary work can be done.
Absolutely.
Artists, musicians, mathematicians, geologists, chemists, biologists, everybody can find something and make their own professions better. So there is something for everybody. This is not the idea that this is just, I wouldn't say, I'm saying just in the sense of only spirituality, or this is only
Mm-hmm.
ritual. This is only for people with too much bhakti. I don't have all this bhakti and all. Yeah, I just want to like live my life, do my thing. But you can live your life and do your thing so much better, in an amazing way, if you're connected to your roots
Yes.
and if you're able to access what people always have accessed, and which is always taken them. You look at the famous artists, famous thinkers, famous writers, they've always accessed something from here, you know. So, I mean, without belaboring the point, I guess my limited thing is, just show them and they will make a way themselves.
This reminded me of something, a famous writer. I got an opportunity to talk to him at JLF, and he was telling this, that today people experience this emptiness within them. Something is missing. He used the phrase that it's like a bottle in an ocean. You're surrounded from all sides with water, but inside you're empty. So how does this emptiness go away? Basically, how does it go away? This is the point where he brought in the ancient culture, the ancient literature. And the deeper you dive, the more beautiful gems you find to live your life. It's not something to read, it's a way of life, as it has already been said many times. So yeah, I think if we are to deal with the existential crisis that we supposedly believe that we are in this facing in this era, I think we have to go back to our roots. We have to go back to our culture that way. Um, since we have come to the end of our session, I would like to ask the audience, if request the audience, if they have some questions, they can please post their questions. uh, Other than that, I would like to ask you, Deepaji, what are your future plans? What are you planning to write? Can we expect more stories, interesting stories from you?
I hope so. I hope so, Anmolji. I really hope so. I would love to write. It's always been a long term plan, thanks to Indica and thanks to the inspiration of sorry, Meenakshi ji's book, and Avtans ji, who curated the collection. So it was a lot of pressure to perform and sort of deliver that story. So that's how it happened. So, but I'm hoping to write. have a bunch of short stories in the works, and I have this longish historical fiction kind of novel set in the
Okay,
10th
that's interesting.
century with my favorite temple and the Shaivacharyas
Mm-hmm.
as the main protagonist, and basically around that in a temple town. So I hope it I hope it reaches readers soon. Yeah.
Uh, Thank you so much, Deepaji. We are at the end of our session, and thank you so much for joining us and giving us your valuable insight to so many things which are so relevant in our times. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you again, and the audience can join us in our next session on 9th July. Thank you so much. That's it from Sutradhar. Thank you.